Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of representation, just checking out music by cultures or regions or people that we don't necessarily typically hear from, sometimes even getting outside of the realms musically that we typically focus on. A lot of rock and metal on the channel. We're going to be diving into a group called Melechesh today, looking at the track Ladders to Sumeria. Let's see what's going on with them today. A little bit of Phrygian thrown in there. Very bouncy and syncopated for 4/4. Hi-hat work. Very cool melody there, sharing it between the high guitars and low vocals. That's an unusual combo. A variation on this riff. This song keeps me on my toes. Rhythmically, it continues to bounce around and explore new realms. I love the cymbal work on this. There's times when it's just quarter notes on a hi-hat or maybe a ride cymbal or something, but there's times when it just kind of gets a little fancy. Those really tight I don't think they're full rolls. I think they're paradiddles actually, which is 2 per hand. Paradiddle, 2 strokes per hand. And that's what gives it its bounciness. We heard it on the ride cymbal right there at the end, but I'm pretty sure we heard it on the hi-hat much earlier in the track too. And it's got a very specific rhythmic pattern to it, an accent feel. Very cool though, just kind of comes out of nowhere, exists for a little bit, and then it's just gone. You don't hear it again. I honestly thought the one at the beginning on the hi-hat was going to be the only one we heard, but just throw it in for a little flavor there in the end of the track. Very cool ideas all around. Speaking on the rhythm though, I mean, it's part rhythm and part evolution. This track is constantly in motion. I feel like there's 3 main melodic motifs in here. When we look at the guitar riffs, which is where most of our melodies come from, there's 3 main ones, and then there's a couple that we use in passing. Like there was that one that we used, the descending line, that was played alongside the really deep vocal line, just continuing to go deeper and deeper. Like, yeah, that was a cool riff, but we only heard it once. So it's kind of like a one-off idea. But when we look at the stuff that continues to come back, there's 3 main riffs. And the cool thing is, what continues to come back is the main elements of these riffs. What I mean by that is that so much of this track, even right from the beginning, you can look at the first 8 bars of this track, and you're gonna find a core motif and an ending, and then the core motif, and then an ending, and the core motif. But each of these endings is different. I think that after we do this 4 times, that 4th ending is consistent. That was the first time I heard a stronger element of the Phrygian mode present, and I continue to hear it at the end of this larger phrase. But the idea of bouncing back and forth between a structured idea, a melodic component, a memorable component, something that you'd be able to hum after hearing it a few times, and then a new idea to contrast that. Something that, if it were repeated, would absolutely be memorable, but just never comes back. This exists all throughout the track. In fact, there were several sections when we came back to the intro riff, and my gut reaction was, oh, okay, we're back to this riff again. Wait, are we? I don't remember this part. And then we get back to the 3rd bar, which would be the core motif again. I'm like, oh yeah, they do this, dude. We alternate between the memorable thing and a brand new extension of it all the time. Even when we look at larger concepts. Like, take this 8-bar idea right here. Even this core idea that we have here will get expanded upon like the 3rd or 4th time we return to it. It's not even just that this is memorable, it's that they're going to take 70% of this core idea and manipulate the rest of it so that when we transition into the new ideas, there's something new to build off of. The end of the core idea is altered. Maybe it's a harmonic change, maybe it's a riff change, maybe it's a rhythm change, something about it is being altered so that we can springboard into new and diverse ideas. This song is in constant evolution. No matter how comfortable I thought I was getting with any part of it, when we return to something that, yeah, we've had that in the song, we're going back to something, it's never identical to anything we checked out in the past. There is some component, some movement, some harmonic change, some riff alteration, some ending idea that is manipulated. It is changed, it is altered. We never do anything identically to how we have done it before. This stands out to me because it isn't completely linear. It is based around these smaller loops, and the grouping of these smaller loops create larger loops. This is a song that, as far as I can tell, certainly has some sort of verse-chorus structure to it. But by no means is that present within the minutiae. It's the larger ebb and flow that happens within this track, not the exact notes being played. The atmospheres, the feelings, the emotions of the sections certainly exist in these cycles, But the riffs themselves, the drum patterns, that's something I haven't even talked about. We focused on guitars, but the drummer, the bassist, they do this also. There is always rhythmic fluctuation within the drum part. The bass typically follows the guitar, so when they change and evolve ideas, the bassist is right there along with them. It's just a song that allows you to feel comfortable, but not familiar. You're never really, after the first few bars, you never really reach a place where you think, oh, I haven't heard anything like this. I don't know where I am. I have to figure out what this section is in relationship to everything else. Everything is really connected on this track, but you're never allowed to just rest on the idea of, I've heard this before. I know what they're doing, because you can't, you don't. They'll feed you a little bit that you're familiar with, but they're going to throw some new spices in there. It's going to have a new side on it. The dish is going to be different, but familiar. And that's what I really love about this. For a first time listen, as someone who attentively listens to the music, this is not a track that I could ever say to myself, okay, this is a moment I can pause for a second, give the song, like 50, 60% of my attention, and then spend a little bit of time kind of sussing out a list of things that I want to bring up in the analysis segment. I was pretty much full attention this entire time. And it's because we never returned to a section where I was like, okay, I get this. When we listen to songs that use a traditional verse, chorus idea, there's moments, especially in the back half of the track, when we hit the second chorus or even the third verse and chorus, where I can just back off a little bit, pay attention for anything that's going to perk my ears up, something that's new, maybe a variation on something. But for the most part, I can take it in a little bit more, a little less with dedicated attention, and kind of create a bit of a brainstorming session for the analysis segment. That's just not true here. Never. And it's wild. I love it though. It's very cool. It allows the song to stay fresh while still feeling familiar. It's like a middle ground between a purely consistent track, your standard verse, chorus idea, and something totally linear, like a progressive track. And it does give this song a fairly progressive feeling, despite, what I think I would call this progressive metal. But a lot of that comes down to the oddities within this concept of the evolution. Because what we end up hearing is a lot of rhythmic and harmonic shifts, which do end up feeling very progressive to my ears, at least. As I mentioned with the guitar melody, that's always in flux, always exploring new parts of the track. But when you listen to the drummer, it's kind of tough to anticipate anything. A couple of times at the beginning of the track, after a fairly straightforward set of 6 bars, we would have a final bar and a half or two that kind of give us a nice reset. And something that I picked up on frequently was this da-dun, da-dun, da-da-da-da-da-dun. That riff or that pattern came up a couple of times at the beginning, and I continued to anticipate it anytime we came back to this opening riff, what I assume is the verse riff. And you may have noticed me kind of having this quick da-da, da-da, but that riff that pattern never really came back again unless I wasn't expecting it. When I was just like, okay, let's see what the drummer's got, I'll throw that riff down. So I find that part of the song to, much like how the melody keeps me on my toes, the drummer keeps me on my toes rhythmically. I can never really anticipate what they're going to do. Also, the 16th notes on the cymbals, twice in the whole song. We went so long after the first time we heard it that I just assumed we weren't going to get to hear that again. And in the last 20 seconds, he threw down another one. The drummer does this consistently. I honestly figured after we had the comparatively lighter intro to this track before getting into the double bass kicks, that now we are in the blackened death metal sound. This is what we're going to be listening to this entire track. And that's kind of why, I don't know, maybe the color left my face at that moment. I was not really in the mood for some black metal. But, surprisingly, we didn't stick with that for very long, and it showed up sparingly. We ended up hearing a lot of different rhythmic devices coming from the drums. And it creates a track that feels aggressive and even oppressive in places with the constant 16th notes that we can get from double bass kicks, while also feeling dancey in places. Honestly, there's a bounciness to some of the areas in here with the use of specific syncopation, such as with that da-da, 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 da-da. Gets this nice, like, bouncy, almost a nu metal kind of rhythm going on there. It's a very fun part of this track, and that's such a strong contrast to the oppressiveness of the 16th notes. And we get all sorts of stuff in between rhythmically on this track as well. Once again, much like with the melodic flourishes and expansions, there's no real indication or foreshadowing that we're going to be entering into a new rhythmic device. It just kind of happens, and you've got to flow with it. I'm sure this track makes a lot of sense after you've spent more time with it and understand its general flow through cadences and riffs and all that. And it's only 4 minutes. I'm sure it only takes a few times through to start to map out how the song evolves. But on a first time listen, it is sort of a whirlwind of ideas just kind of thrown at me, and I just have to go along for the ride. Speaking of that, there is also the harmonic side to this, which is also a bit interesting. We have some generally metal pentatonic stuff in here, focusing on just that really aggressive rule of cool metal style. Lots of sick riffs within this, but it doesn't really deviate too far outside of a general metal sound. And I was actually surprised within the first like 30 seconds, a good portion of this track, and I was wondering, why is this here for Representation Week? How is this any different than anything else we've checked out? I'm going to assume that this comes from a region or a culture that we just don't typically see on the channel. I'll look at some of that when we break for lyrics. But I will say that there's some cool progressive ideas in here too, particularly on the harmonic side, as we did explore a bit more of the Phrygian dominant sound there in places. Again, it's a small deviation. We enter it and then we kind of flip back to what we're familiar with. But there's also some sounds in here that I don't know what the exact mode or chord name would be for them, but they have a vaguely, and I know this is a very big umbrella I'm casting here. If anyone has more specific information about the harmonies and chords used here, please let me know. But a vaguely Middle Eastern vibe throughout most of this track. I haven't listened to a lot of music from this region. I've explored more of it in the last couple of years than I think I ever have in my entire life, which is very cool. One of the things I love about this channel is being exposed to all sorts of music, but I do kind of hear a sort of an overlapping line with some of the Middle Eastern music that we have checked out on this channel, although I think primarily we have looked at folk or traditional music and more modern pop music within these regions, but it's still a harmonic through line that kind of connects all of that with some of the sections of this song. And I think that's what I find most interesting about the harmonic side. It's not quite as varying and unpredictable as the rhythmic and melodic sides are, but it does introduce some flavors that I don't hear too often with metal. The Phrygian mode is quite a bit more common, but it's still not something that we see all the time. So it's really nice having these specific harmonic flavors within this. Well, I mean, let's face it, this is a death metal track through and through. There's not a lot in here that is different. Most of the progressive elements come from phrasing, variability, and pacing on this track, more so than anything else. But it is a component of the track that I find lines up with everything going on. This is a song about retaining a core, but exploring various facets of it. And I think that's pretty cool. You don't see that too often outside of really classical. This is, I mean, it's a bit of a, it's simpler in some ways and more complex in some ways to a fugue, something where you would explore many variations on a theme. And that's kind of what we get here in rapid microcosm fashion. So again, it's just really neat. Let's hit some lyrics on this one, see what's going on there. I'll look into the band and try to find why they were selected for the week, and then we'll wrap this video up. All right, a little bit of background info. This is an Israeli band who were, I don't know if it was during this album. I don't even know when this album was. 2006 it looks like. Anyways, they ran into some issues with Israeli authorities and ended up relocating to Europe for a while before getting that cleared up. That's interesting. The song itself is about something I have zero knowledge about. It's Mesopotamian mythology, called Sumerian. It's the Sumerian religion that this track is about. And it's a bit of a sci-fi take on it too. It does bring up some of the deities like Enki and who are the other ones that got brought up? Dilmun and Platus. I'm probably not pronouncing any of this right either. I apologize for that. But it does talk about them as beings from another planet rather than the more traditional way we typically understand gods in a mythological fashion. And that in Sumeria, they built skyports. I assume this is where they landed their spaceships when they came to Earth. It talks about how they came here, that they were primordial beings, dowsing for mines of gold. They were looking for gold on Earth. I'm not sure how accurate this is. I did read the source on it, and it came from a Medium article, so I'm going to assume it's accurate, but I guess in this mythology, these gods came to Earth in search of gold to bring back to their planet, which was too far from the sun, and they would use the gold in the atmosphere to trap heat in. It's a very intricate mythology for these gods. But that through all of this, they left technology behind, such as these skyports. It says that they have towers of fire, which, I don't know, maybe indicates volcanoes were brought here by the gods. I don't know what else that would represent. It talks about there being wormholes and vessels of Enki that soar above us. It talks about the grand white temple of Uruk, and that there lies the zenith mark for ascension. It talks about how the 7 titans, the 7 gods, came down and that they commune with the people on Earth as they wait for their solar dominion. That's about it. It doesn't seem like it's too much of a story, more of just a description of this mythology through this sci-fi lens. But maybe the sci-fi lens is based on some truths too. I'm not sure. As I said, this is a total blind spot for me. I know nothing about the Sumerian religion. So it's interesting. I learned a lot today. I heard some music that's pretty neat. Read about some topics I was unaware of. Does all this fit together? I don't think so. Nothing in the music really told me I was going to get this little description of some real world mythology. So it just sounded like a cool semi-progressive metal track to me. But you know, at the end of the day, it is kind of story-like. Plot beats keep coming back, but it's always a new story. It's linear but cyclical. I kind of like that. But I have nothing else to add to this. Like, all I'm doing is reporting the words to y'all. I don't have an opinion on this. It feels very factual, matter-of-factly. Doesn't seem like there's any opinion put into this or some sort of other story trying to be done within this. It's just a retelling of this mythology. And yeah, so that's that. These are my thoughts then on Ladders to Sumeria by Melechesh. What did you think of this group, of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to, into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, is a link to Linktree. It'll take you here where you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.